Konnichiwa. Today we're going to talk about pitch accent, which isn't the kind of thing I usually talk about, but a number of people have asked me about it, and various people seem quite worried about it, and I can see why they might be worried about it. So I think it's time we address the subject. Pitch accent is something that nobody really talked about up until a few years ago, but currently, at least in the eyes of a number of Japanese learning enthusiasts, it's become rather a big thing. So the questions are, is it such a big undertaking to learn it? Is it really such a huge endeavor? Can't we learn it by simply immersing in Japanese anyway? Won't we pick it up by hearing it? And is it really that important anyway? So let's take these questions. First of all, yes, if you study it in a systematic, academic kind of way, it really is a big subject. You have to learn the pitch of every word, and it doesn't stop there because words change their pitch pattern when they're in combinations, and then there's sentence level pitch. So yes, it makes quite an extra big thing, not only to learn in addition to kanji and vocabulary and structure, but also another thing to worry about when you're talking. So what about picking it up naturally by immersion? Isn't this the better way to go about it? Well, I'm going to call into evidence here a video made by another YouTuber which looks into this question and I think comes up with some pretty solid evidence. What this video, and I'm going to link to it in the information section below, what it does is it takes various highly proficient foreign speakers, including Katsumoto-san, Adam Shapiro-san from Japanese Level Up, the YouTuber himself, which I think was very game of him. He's also extremely proficient. And what's more interesting to me than the Japanese enthusiasts is a talento, a foreign television personality who makes his living essentially by chatting in Japanese to the Japanese public. The video analyzes the pitch accent of each of these speakers and shows that in all cases, within the course of a short clip, they make multiple so-called mistakes in pitch accent. And when I say so-called mistakes, I mean that these are variations from standard Tokyo pitch pattern. They go up when they should have gone level, level when they should have gone down, down when they should have gone up, and so forth. And what the YouTuber was setting out to demonstrate, and I think he's achieved his aim, he has clearly demonstrated, is that even people who are very solidly immersed in the language and using it fluently as a means of communication are making so-called errors in pitch pattern. So they're not picking it up by ear, even though they're very heavily immersed. Now the next point is that people often bring up, well, Japanese pitch pattern isn't a single thing anyway, is it? There's Tokyo pitch, there's Osaka pitch, there's pitch from different parts of the country, and even young people in Tokyo don't tend to have exactly the same pitch pattern as older people in Tokyo. So if Japanese pitch pattern is really all over the place, does it matter? Is anyone even going to notice? And the answer to that is, well, yes, they are going to notice, because while Japanese people have various pitch patterns, they're generally consistent. You don't often hear someone using Osaka pitch in one sentence and Tokyo pitch in the next. So if your pitch pattern doesn't fall into one of the Japanese regular types, yes, it will sound a bit foreign. So then the next question is, does this matter? Does it actually affect intelligibility? And although the video I'm citing doesn't draw this conclusion, it seems to me pretty obvious that the video itself demonstrates that the answer is no, it doesn't. All the speakers are very good communicators in Japanese. I'm most interested, as I say, in the talento, because his job, his livelihood, is communicating with the Japanese people in Japanese, and he's making mistakes in pitch accent as the video demonstrates. Now, if this was affecting his intelligibility, if people were having trouble understanding what he was saying, he'd be out of a job. Kaputsuki, zen zen dame. So I think we can say pretty definitively that no, so-called wrong pitch accent does not affect intelligibility on a non-trivial level. So, do you need pitch accent? Well, this really depends on you. The best teacher, I think, of pitch accent is Dogen-san. He's very knowledgeable about pitch accent. He is, by trade, as you might say, a mimic. He's a very good mimic. And if you're going to be a mimic, if you're going to take off people's voices and mannerisms in Japanese, you have to have good pitch accent. So he needs pitch accent, no question about it. If you're going to be a voice actor playing Japanese roles in Japanese anime, for example, you need pitch accent, no question. If you're not going to do any of those things, well, you certainly don't need it. You might want it, or you might not. You'd have to weigh up the costs in terms of time and effort and interference with other things, because if you're worrying about pitch accent while you're speaking, that's going to hinder your approach to fluency. It's not going to kill it. So it's a factor to take into account. But the point is, whether you want it or not is your own decision. Whether you need it or not is clear enough. It's not going to affect your intelligibility. So unless you need it for something like voice acting, you don't actually need it. So why do so many people who aren't intending to do anything that actually requires it treat it as such a big issue? Now, I have a theory about this, and essentially it is involving the fact that there is quite a strong culture in certain Japanese enthusiast circles of treating Japanese not just as a language but as a competitive sport. There's a lot of talk about who's awesome and who sucks, who gets a gold medal and who only gets a bronze. And to that way of thinking, it may not be entirely conscious, but to that way of thinking, it's actually welcome to find something that makes it all harder, something that helps to distinguish between the gold medalists and the bronze medalists. And beyond that, I've also seen articles where people say things like, well, when I've become really good at Japanese, where do I go from there? Maybe I learn Korean, or maybe I start learning Bungo, classical Japanese, which is different from modern Japanese. In other words, there are people who are attached to the whole process of learning. It's their hobby. Now, I don't want to disparage this at all. It's rather like a sport, and many people devote large parts of their lives to becoming highly proficient in a sport, and I think most of us would consider that to be admirable. So I'm not being critical here, but I'm looking at motivations. I don't find the mechanics of learning Japanese interesting or valuable in themselves. They are simply means to an end, and the end is living, acting, reading, watching, conversing, creating in Japanese. That's what matters to me. The process of learning Japanese is just a necessary evil that has to be got out of the way as quickly as possible. Now where it matters, I'm not a corner cutter. If people ask me, can I learn Japanese without kanji? No, you can't. Kanji are vital to Japanese. Can I write Japanese in Romaji? No, you can't. It may seem easy in the early stages, but you're cutting your own power cord in more ways than you can imagine. Can I ignore the distinction in speaking between double vowels and single vowels? No, you can't, because people won't understand you. Can I ignore pitch accent? Well, the choice is up to you, but it certainly won't be fatal if you do. If you want your Japanese to be so good you can't be distinguished from a native speaker, even though you have no professional or other reasons for wanting that, If that's just what you happen to want, that's fine. Then you need pitch accent. If you have different priorities, if you want to learn Japanese to watch anime, to read manga, to make friends in Japanese, to create things in Japanese, to entertain in Japanese, you don't need exact Tokyo pitch accent to do that. If we take the sport analogy again, some people devote large portions of their life and time to becoming top-notch racing drivers. Other people learn to drive because they have places to go and things to see. When you decide which kind of a Japanese learner you are, you may very well know whether or not you need pitch accent. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below and I will answer as usual. I'd like to thank my gold Kokeshi patrons, my producer angels who make these videos possible, and all my patrons and supporters on Patreon and everywhere. And I'd like to thank you for attending this lesson. これからもよろしくお願いします。Class dismissed.